Welcome to the intersection of technology, cybersecurity, and society. Welcome to ITSP Magazine. You're listening to a new episode of Stories from Space podcast, where your host, Matthew Williams, examines the history of human spaceflight, the breakthroughs that revolutionized our understanding of the universe and our place in it, and the brave individuals who work tirelessly to advance the frontiers of our understanding. Knowledge is power, now more than ever.
The authors acknowledge that this podcast was recorded on the traditional, unceded lands of the Lekwungen peoples.
I was really young when the Apollo missions took place, but I do remember sitting in my living room with my family and watching Apollo 11 land on the moon. And I think that's something that just has stuck with me my entire life. And so I've always been interested in space exploration. I remember as a kid in school, whenever we'd get the Weekly Reader, a little newspaper of science and news from around the country. And so whenever we would get something in there that had a picture from, one of the early Mars missions or later on Voyager, I would just be enamored with it. So this has been a lifelong interest of mine. In all my reporting that I've done since, I guess I started in 1999, that's really what I've enjoyed the most, is getting to interview people who do behind the scenes things, make these missions happen, and do things that normally don't make the press releases or the front page news, but still make incredible contributions to the missions.
Hello all, welcome back to Stories from Space. Joining me today is a person that I'm proud to call a colleague. She is a fellow science communicator and something of a mentoring figure to me. She was there when I first joined Universe Today, and she's also a noted author who has two rather famous titles there, which include Incredible Stories from Space and 8 Years to the Moon, The History of the Apollo Missions. Welcome, everyone, to Nancy Atkinson. Nancy, thank you for coming on.
Hey, thanks so much for asking me on, Matt. It's great to join you on this new venture of yours.
Well, thank you. And I got to tell you, I was real concerned that given the title of your first book, Incredible Stories from Space, that, oh dear. I was having one of those moments where like, oh God, am I going to get sued here?
No. Not by me anyway.
Oh yeah.
Don't worry about that.
Yeah, good point. The series is young. Lawsuits could be, something far down the road when, people actually start to notice. But yes, I also wanted to take a moment to acknowledge that your books, and one of the key things that that I want to do with this show, and that I certainly said so when during the introduction to it, which was part of an episode of Audio Signals here on ITSP Magazine. Yes, said that one of the goals here was to look at the personal side or the human side of things and tell stories of how major research, major discoveries, and important missions, how they happened. And I feel like, you and what you do embodies that very, very well. So, I consider having you on here a perfect example of, what she is doing. That's what I want to do too. She's done it first, and she's done it more. So,
thanks. Yeah, I've in all my reporting that I've done since, I guess I started in 1999. That's really what I've enjoyed the most, is getting to interview people who do behind the scenes things, make these missions happen, and do things that normally don't make the press releases or the front page news, but still make incredible contributions to the missions.
Absolutely, yeah. In your two very, very famous and influential books, certainly within the space community and the wider science communicator community, you tackled the stories behind the stories, first with Incredible Stories from Space, which was released in 2016, And you looked at several well-known space missions of the time: New Horizons, Curiosity, Hubble, and told the stories of the lesser heard, the unsung people behind these robotic missions. And then 8 years to the moon, the Apollo missions, right? Basically, I felt like 8 years to the moon was what you did in your first book there, but vastly amplified because, of course, these missions were such a big screaming deal at the time, and still are to this day, right? And yeah, that certainly resonated with me there. But first, before we get into that, I wanted to ask about how you came to science communication. For example, I know from your dossier here, you started writing at Universe Today in 2004, 10 years before I joined, and you've since become a writer for the Planetary Society, the National Space Society.
Just a feature writer for the Planetary Society. I write now. I used to write, the articles for their website, but now I'm primarily writing for their magazine, which is a quarterly magazine.
Yeah, and also for the National Space Society's publication at Astra.
I write occasionally for them at Astra, and they've got a lot of writers, but whenever they need a feature article there too, I'm available. And I also just started writing recently for Supercluster, which is an online site, and they cover all sorts of things, everything to do with space.
And this, of course, has led to you becoming a person who gathers these stories behind the scenes from space. Now, could you tell us a little bit about how it all started for you? What drew you to it?
Yeah, well, I was really young when the Apollo missions took place, but I do remember sitting in my living room with my family and watching Apollo 11 land on the moon. And I think that's something that just has stuck with me my entire life. And so I've always been interested in space exploration. I remember as a kid in school, whenever we'd get in Canada, do you have the weekly reader when you were a kid? No. Anyway, it was
not sure.
It was like a weekly little newspaper of science and news from around the country. And so whenever we would get something in there that had a picture from, one of the early Mars missions or later on Voyager, I would just be enamored with it. So this has been a lifelong interest of mine. But I did go to college to be a writer, kind of. I majored in English with a emphasis in mass communications. But I didn't really know what I wanted to write, or I tried writing fiction that really didn't sit well with me, or it didn't turn my crank, as people like to say. And so when I graduated, I didn't really know what I wanted to do. All I knew was that I did not want to teach. So of course I ended up teaching, but I taught at a really cool place, the Science Museum of Minnesota. And there I had the chance to do a lot of hands-on science things with students, and also had the chance to create a program for, they had access to a 1/3 actual size inflatable space shuttle. And they needed a program for that. And so I developed the program and did all these hands-on space science things, and really kind of got my juices flowing again as far as my interest in space exploration. And from there, I kind of realized that I wanted to reach a broader audience than just grade school kids. And so I started just writing, and had the chance to write for a very young space.com. Did a couple articles for them, and also wrote some articles for kind of the local newspapers. And I live in Minnesota, and so one of the astronauts that went on one of the space shuttle missions was from Minnesota, and so I pitched an article to the local newspaper, and they said, sure, go ahead, interview him. And so I ended up doing 3 articles based on his mission. So that gave me a good start. And then in 2004, I saw a note on Universe Today that Fraser was looking for writers. He was basically doing it all by himself. And so I, pitched him an idea, or said, I've had some articles published. And so he gave me a really great assignment for my first article, and the rest is history, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
And so now I've kind of got a goal here. I'm closing in on 6,000 articles that I've published for Universe Today. So that's coming up. I hope to get that done before the end of the year.
That's excellent. As you said in your first book, Incredible Stories from Space, from 2010 onwards, you began to witness missions, right? You would go down to NASA's Kennedy Space Center. You'd see missions happen. You'd talk to people behind the scenes, and from that you were privy to a lot of an insider's look, really, that few people get to have. And one thing I thought was very interesting. I mean, you explained in your book that there is a rigorous process for getting robotic missions approved, and you walked the readers through that, and also how there's a quote there where you said these machines are emissaries out into the cosmos, flung to faraway places that humans can't yet visit. And I thought that's really quite meaningful. So a question that came to my mind was, do you think that when it comes to robotic missions versus crewed missions, there's a bit of that robotic missions are less valued? They don't quite get the same amount of credit that they deserve?
Well, in some aspects, perhaps. I think the general public really is, enamored with human missions. At least they have been in the past. The Apollo missions really captured a lot of attention. But also take a look at the excitement of the images that come back from the Hubble Space Telescope and how much that has changed the general public's perception of space exploration or of space itself. And the images from the Mars rovers, the kind of human eye level pictures taken from these rovers and landers that really give us a human perspective of what it would be like to stand there on Mars' surface. So I think while there is a lot of interest in human missions, the robotic missions really, again, to take us to places that we can't go. And so that really offers something different than what human missions can do, at least at this point anyway.
Mm-hmm. And of course, there's all these people making it happen. And there's often funny or inspiring, I'd say always inspiring, sometimes funny, stories as to how they got it done, right?
Right. Oh, exactly. Yeah, there's a lot of, in my first book, there's a lot of stories that I feel kind of privileged to tell, or things that they shared with me that, hadn't made it to prime time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, yeah. Now, as I mentioned, you covered some of the most renowned and game-changing missions that have happened there in the past 10 years, or as of the book's publication. It was missions that had launched from 2010 onwards. So, or were still active in that time. So that included New Horizons, Curiosity, Hubble, the Dawn mission, Kepler Space Telescope, the Cassini-Huygens mission, a Solar Dynamics Observatory, Mars Reconnaissance Orbiter, the Lunar Reconnaissance Orbiter. These are all very game-changing missions there, and I myself I've only really been following these since 2014 when I started working with for Fraser and Universe Today. So, immediately I thought, oh yes, all of these missions here. There was so much that they revealed. So it struck me as just how interesting these, what was going on in the background there to make that happen. How that was just so very, very interesting in itself. Now, of all the these missions and all the people behind it there, are there any stories that you picked up along the way that still just jump out at you? It's like, holy.
Yeah, there are a couple, and one of them involves the New Horizons mission that flew past Pluto, and I got kind of an inside look at. Well, I got to visit the Mission Operations Center out in Baltimore at Johns Hopkins University, and it was interesting. I didn't get to be there the day of the historic flyby in 2015, and but I remember watching the video feed, and that room was just absolutely packed with people from the mission. A few photographers, most of the reporters were in another room. But the day that I was there, it was just me and one other person who was showing me around, and so that was really special to be there in this kind of quiet room where I could see the data coming in and that kind of thing. So that was really fun. But in the book, I got to tell the story. I don't know if you remember, Matt, of seeing that first image of Pluto come back that had the kind of famous image now of Pluto with the heart-shaped area in the center of the image. And so I got to hear the story of how that image came back and what the first people who saw it with human eyes, their reaction and what happened. There was a bit of a funny story where the person that was supposed to be monitoring the data coming back, he kept clicking on his computer to refresh the screen to get the data to come in, and then he realized he was clicking on the wrong file. So that, these people had not slept much in the weeks leading up to the flyby, so that's kind of understandable. And then when he did open the right file, he couldn't find the right image, and so he had to go down to the people who actually were monitoring the data coming back from the spacecraft, and so together it was supposed to be just him seeing it, and then he wasn't supposed to share it with anybody else in the world. But so it was kind of a group of them that got to open the image file, and he said their jaws just dropped to the floor. They couldn't believe what they were seeing of this just beautiful planet, Pluto, and this heart-shaped region there. And, a few expletives leaked out of their of their mouths and stuff. And there wasn't actually a reporter there who heard all that and published that later. But anyway, that was kind of a fun story to hear about, because I just remember so vividly of seeing that picture myself for the first time. Other things that I thought were really interesting were, Matt, we've done a lot of stories from the Mars Reconnaissance Orbiter, and the incredible camera on board that mission is the HiRISE camera, the high resolution science experiment. And so I got to talk to the people who program the codes to tell the spacecraft what to take a picture of. And, just think about this spacecraft is going around at orbital speeds or Mars, which is I don't remember the exact kph, but it goes around at incredible speeds. It's about 300 miles up, 2 to 300 miles up, and it's able to take these incredible crisp images of the surface down to a resolution of about 1 meter. And so it takes images in long strips, and but still they can focus down on small details. And how do you get a spacecraft to do that? From distances from Earth to Mars. It's really an incredible process, and I was really happy to tell the story about the people who do all this kind of behind the scenes work that doesn't get covered normally.
Yeah. Oh yeah. And well, you got to meet Alan Stern. In the course of gathering stories about the New Horizons mission and so forth.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now,
so
yeah,
he's a ball of fire.
Yeah. Well, for those listeners who are unfamiliar, Alan Stern was the principal investigator of the New Horizons mission, and he's become a bit of a subject of some controversy because, of course, as this mission was happening, there was the Great Planet debate. And a focal point of that debate was, is Pluto a planet or something else? And yes, and he was not too happy with the International Astronomical Union's decision. That was 2006, was it?
Yes. Yes, it was right after New Horizons. Yes,
Yeah.
Right after New Horizons launched, the IAU met and decided to reclassify Pluto. And so, that not that it changed the New Horizons mission at all, but I it may have changed people's concept of it or whatever. But Alan Stern has been very vociferous about his support of Pluto is still being a planet. Which, it's completely understandable. And now, especially since we've received those incredible images of Pluto, just that Pluto has an atmosphere. We see Pluto might have clouds. There's mountains, there's plains, there's, it's just an incredible, I'll call it a planet. And so, it's just that it's different from all the rest of the planets. So, I can see both viewpoints, and I really don't have a strong opinion one way or other. Pluto really doesn't care what we call it. And so it's a bit of just semantics, and that's, I enjoy reporting on the science of it.
Exactly. I totally agree. I was actually going to say that it seems like semantics, but I know from personal experience that Alan Stern and a lot of other research scientists and amateur astronomers, they really cared about that renaming, reclassifying, because of course they were concerned that this would diminish Pluto and the exploration thereof, which I would definitely wish I could convey to them that no, nobody thinks that, or I don't know, maybe some people do, but who cares what they think, right?
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. Now, what I was especially interested in, one of the reasons why I bring up Alan Stern there, was because both he and Mike Brown had high praise for your book, and I thought, well, that's real interesting, because these men are kind of on opposite sides of the debate, kind of. I don't want to use the term enemies, but they're pretty opposite each other. And it's very impressive when you can get two people who really don't agree on, something rather famously, but they both agree this book is great. Yeah.
Well, thanks. I hadn't really thought of that before, but Mike Brown's book is How I Killed Pluto and Why It Had It Coming. And so that gives you an indication of his thoughts on the debate. But anyway, thanks. I hadn't really thought of that before.
Yeah. Well, and another thing that came through to me with that book there is that today there are a lot of exciting opportunities, right? There are chances to connect with space agencies and research institutes like never before, thanks to global digital media, internet, etc., and also for citizen scientists to participate in these projects like never before. So
I just saw a new one just came out this week. It's using citizen scientists to look for clouds on Mars, using the high-rise images and data. So there's all sorts of things for people to play around with and actually make a scientific contribution to some of these missions. There's the Zooniverse, all the Galaxy Zoo and everything that they do. And of course, Dr. Pamela Gay has CosmoQuest, where there is just all sorts of opportunities with different missions to look. I know there used to be craters on the moon and Mars, and I'd have to look what she's got currently. But there's always great things at CosmoQuest as well.
And this one one very visible way that the citizen scientists, the new opportunities for that, which you mentioned in your book, was with Kepler. Because,
Yes.
yeah. So the Kepler Space Telescope launched in 2009, and this coincided with a big explosion in the use of the internet, of social media, through these new means of communicating. Citizen scientists were able to take part in the mission and help look for exoplanets. Yeah, I always thought that was very interesting, right? It's like somebody's got to look through the volumes of data. So it's perfect. See, it's like, source that out. If you're qualified, you can do this,
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Yep.
Well,
so that's the great thing about citizen science is that you can do things to really help out the scientists from the mission, because there's reams of data that come in from these spacecraft. And so there's just no way humanly possible that a science team can look at everything and kind of eke out the interesting little tidbits. Whereas when you've got thousands of eyes other than your science team looking at it and saying, hey, this looks interesting, or this looks interesting, and then, there's also ways that you can train computers to kind of find the interesting bits in the data as well. So yeah, it's kind of a great synergy between the public, the scientists, and also the advancement in computer recognition of these kind of types of data.
Okay, so last thing I want to say about incredible stories from space, because we got to get to 8 years to the moon here. So you mentioned at the end of your book there, missions to be on the lookout for, many of which have taken to space and gone to Mars or since. And now I definitely was anticipating that certain missions that you mentioned, I was definitely anticipating those. Some other ones I thought, oh yeah, forgot about those guys. Thank you for reminding me. They have shown us a lot. But I wanted to ask your personal opinion of all the missions that were yet to come in 2016. And, we can extend that to today. 2022, the missions we're looking forward to. What would you say are like the top 2 or 3 missions that you're most excited to see?
Well, I have to say the James Webb Space Telescope, because in 2 weeks from when we're recording this, Matt, the mission, the first images from the mission should be released. And so that's, I'm really anticipating what those images will reveal, just how much they'll differ from Hubble or Spitzer previous telescopes. And yeah, it's been a long time coming for James Webb. So that's pretty interesting. And, it's garnered a lot of attention just because of how complicated the mission was, the launch, the unfolding of the telescope on its way out to L2, Lagrange point 2, about 1 million miles from Earth. And just everything has gone incredibly well, just almost perfectly. So even after, decades of delays and funding issues and more delays, it's finally coming to fruition. And so I think everybody's pretty excited about James Webb. Oh, the OSIRIS-REx mission to asteroid Bennu, that has launched now and actually is on its way back, bringing a sample from the asteroid. So that's really exciting. And just how well that mission went as well, trying to bring the spacecraft down close enough so it could nab some regolith and some rocks maybe from the asteroid. And yeah, that was really exciting to watch and see that happen in real time. And so that was a fun mission to look for, to experience and to be able to write about it as well. Let's see.
Yeah, I was definitely betting on you saying James Webb. I wish I'd put some money down with that on that there.
Yes. The other mission that was just about to launch, it launched before the book was published, but of course I had to do the interviews months earlier for the book, the Juno mission to Jupiter. And that's been just really fun. Of course, the images that we see from the public or that the public sees is from a camera that originally was not going to be on the spacecraft, because the spacecraft is all about studying Jupiter and its magnetosphere. And so there's all sorts of magnetometers and spectrometers and things like that on the spacecraft, but they realized, oh, we should actually, we're going to this beautiful planet. We should bring a camera along. And so it's been basically a citizen science-based camera where the members of the public get to choose what it takes pictures of. Members of the public are processing the images and the data when it comes back. So that's really been fun. And of course, we're learning more about Jupiter all the time because of this mission. And it's ongoing. Like a lot of the missions these days, it had a specific lifetime for its prime mission. And the mission is lasting much longer, and the spacecraft and the hardware is performing magnificently. So they've been able to extend the mission, and it's still ongoing, where originally it was going to be over with by, I think, 2018 or 19.
The images that it sent back, they are breathtaking.
Yes, they really are.
Yes, if you haven't, if any listeners haven't checked those out, I mean, I would say you've already seen them. You may not have known they were coming from Juno, but yes, it makes Jupiter's atmosphere looks like milk entering coffee, just
yes,
slowly percolating, or the perfect pour of a Guinness or equally frothy beer, right? It's beautiful.
That's a good description.
Yeah,
you're making me thirsty here, Matt.
Yeah, me too. Oh, it's not 11 yet, so we'll stick with coffee, I guess. Yeah, okay, so as for 8 years to the moon, this was released in 2019. It was re-released, a special edition for the 50th anniversary of Apollo 11. And here too, your purpose was very clearly similar, right? It was telling the human stories behind the headlines. But of course, this time around, there was very much a human face on the program, but it was that of Kennedy. It was that of the astronauts themselves. A little excerpt here from your book. You said that while there were 3 people on the moon, it took over 400,000 people working back on Earth there to make this happen. And they were all there too for that triumphant moment where Armstrong is stepping off the lander, and yes, even included the bit about when they were told, all these smiling faces down here, and Armstrong said, well, there's 2 up here too. And Michael Collins chimed in up in the command and service module and said, that's 3, thank you, 3 people. And
yes.
Yeah, and I thought he's right. I mean, Buzz Aldrin, Neil Armstrong became household names. How many of us really know about who was piloting the whole time there? That doesn't seem fair. And
right.
Yeah.
Right.
And so that really struck me as very, very interesting there. And to give our listeners an example, you were telling the story about how in 1962, when Kennedy came to visit the Manned Spacecraft Center, there's the apocryphal story about how he said hello to a janitor, and the janitor said, I'm helping to put a man on the moon, when he was asked, what do you do around here? And of course, yeah, and Kennedy laughed because, yes, that's absolutely true. Everybody here, nobody's doing anything less than contributing to this program and its lofty goals. But that this didn't really happen. It's one of those legends that sort of it makes a point. It makes a valid point, but it didn't actually take place. And but something that did take place, and I really enjoyed reading about this. So a spacesuit engineer named Joe Cosmo was called in to demonstrate the spacesuits to Kennedy, and Lyndon Johnson and Wernher von Braun was there, and all these bigwigs and higher ups. And Johnson threw a quarter on the ground. And he said, oh, look, he'll even be able to pick it up. And he's all nervous because he's like, we didn't practice this. He's like, don't improvise. Come on. But he managed to do that. And then shortly thereafter, they're looking in the in a mock-up of the lunar module. And von Braun falls and lands on Joe Cosmo and thanks him for saving his life. And it's like, wow. So this guy who felt totally out of place, he was brought in and he ends up saving their chief rocket engineer and all that stuff. But nobody hears about it because shortly thereafter, Kennedy goes over to Rice University, which is right nearby, and gives his famous speech.
Right.
And yeah, and yeah, I thought that is so typical. Right? I mean, yeah, and who has not heard that speech? But yeah, it's like something really, really major happened behind the scenes that was probably a lot more important than Kennedy's speaking engagement. But history remembers this.
Yeah. What would have happened if Werner von Braun had been seriously injured or passed away that date from that fall? That's pretty amazing. Yeah. When my publisher asked me to write a book about the Apollo program, because we were discussing what, they said that they'd like to do another book with me and discussing what we should do. And I kind of happened to mention that the 50th anniversary of Apollo 11 was coming up in a couple of years. And they said, "Oh, that's definitely what we want you to write about." And so, I started doing a little research and found that there are already hundreds of books on Apollo. So I knew that I had to do something different. And kind of going back to what I did in my first book was telling the stories of people you don't normally hear about. And so I just thought, well, I'm going to take the same approach here and talk to people who, as one of the gentleman that I interviewed told me, he said, besides my friends and family, nobody else has really ever asked me about what I did on Apollo. And here's a guy that made incredible contributions. There was some thrusters on the command module. They were under development and they kept blowing up and nobody could figure out why they were blowing up. And of course, something blowing up on the way to the moon is not a good thing. And he's one of the guys who helped figure out what was happening and got that fixed. So he made pretty monumental contributions to the Apollo program. If these thrusters had continued to malfunction, they would not have made it to the moon before 1970. So that was a big contribution. So yeah, I feel really honored. I interviewed about 45 different engineers. I knew I couldn't tell the story of all 400,000 people, but I interviewed about 45 people and got their behind the scenes stories. Kind of one that really stands out is a story that has not been written about before, and it took a lot of people off guard, is that when Apollo 11 was coming back home and returning to Earth, the command module would separate from the service module, and the service module was supposed to go off and re-enter at another time. Well, what actually happened, and they found this had happened on Apollo 8 as well, coming back from the moon, was that the thruster firings on the service module didn't work as they exactly intended, and so the crew of Apollo 11 saw the service module flying over them and going in and, going down to Earth's atmosphere and burning up ahead of them. That was not the plan. And so this got realized after they came back home, and, it wasn't really discussed as being an issue during the mission. It was after the mission that they realized that this was not the way this was supposed to work, because pieces coming off as it broke up in the atmosphere could have struck the command module, and that would have been curtains basically. And so they had to fix that, and it wasn't something that was well known or talked about. And in fact, some of the guys in mission control, when they read what I had written, they said they got in touch with me and said, "You need to write a retraction. This did not happen." And I said, "Well, I've got the documentation here. I've got the engineer who fixed it. Let's have you talk to him." So it was kind of a major reveal in my book or whatever you want to call it. But so I was privileged to be able to tell those kind of stories of things that other people hadn't heard about before.
Yeah. Well, I remember when the book was released, hearing you talk about that, this whole process, they're revealing these untold stories. And yes, especially about how NASA was kind of pounced there, right? And said, whoa, can she say this? Has this been declassified? Has this been declassified yet? Like, oh, I don't know. Nobody remembers. Everyone just remembers the mission. Yeah. But yeah.
Well, that's like, kind of the thing. They were all the engineers and were so busy trying to get ready for the next mission that if you weren't specifically working on the thrusters for the service module, you didn't have time to think about that. You were worried about your own systems or components that you were working on, and you were relying on everybody else to make sure that the things that they were working on were working properly. So, it was bang bang. How quickly the missions. We think when the space shuttle used to have about 2 missions a year at top speed. That was big, but the Apollo missions were coming quite quickly, one right after another. So
yeah.
it was a busy time for them. I wrote a lot about how they missed a lot of family things. They missed seeing their kids grow up. First dances for their daughters, or ball games for their sons, and a lot of marriages suffered because of how much time these people were dedicating to the Apollo missions. So it was it took a toll on a lot of lives and marriages, and but it was obviously for these people who worked on it, it is one of the most major accomplishments of their lives, and they're extremely proud of it.
Yeah. And of course, yeah, it's not just the astronauts who had all kinds of family issues and drama going on there, right?
Yes, exactly.
Yes. It's like, yeah, kids, parents are escorting to school, it's like, where's your dad? Why couldn't he make it? He's on the moon. Like, oh, right, you're so-and-so, yeah. But, yeah, it's like, well, my dad and my mom are, specialists over at JPL at NASA. They're helping put those guys up there, right? You know about the astronauts? Well, my parents are the ones helping make that happen. Yeah. Well, yeah, that is, I think, a very important reminder. So I think it's very good that, your publisher encouraged you to keep writing. Do you foresee another book of this nature in the future?
Not right now. It's I think with that last book, it took a lot of work and a lot of time and a lot of effort, and I too kind of had to neglect my family for a little while in writing that book.
Yes,
and so I've and just what's happened with the COVID-19 pandemic and everything. It's just you kind of focus on the things that are really important, and I don't see that happening in right away in the near future anyway. But who knows? You like we discussed earlier. You never know how your life is going to turn out and what opportunities present themselves. So I guess I'm always open to something like that happening, but don't see it right now.
Well, I kind of feel like I must sound like your publisher right now, because if I were your publisher, I'd be saying, let's how about the space shuttle next? How about the ISS next? So many stories.
There really are. Yeah. There really are lots of stories out there. So anybody looking to write a book about space, there are tons of stories out there that haven't been told. So go look for them.
Well, yeah, that's a wonderful and encouraging note there to offer the listeners here. I'd point out that Nancy and I, like I said, she's a colleague. She pretty much helped you helped get my feet wet over at Universe Today, right? When I joined in 2014, you were the editor.
Yeah, senior editor at that time. So, yeah, I've since, when I started writing the books, I stepped back a little bit. So now I'm considered a contributing editor. But that's been one of the really fun parts of working for Universe Today, is working with a lot of the different writers and helping, kind of being a mentor to the new writers, the young writers, just to give them a sense of writing online. It's a little bit different than writing for a magazine. You've kind of got to state your premise right up front, and you've got to have a great headline, which Fraser usually takes care of and does a great job on. And you got to have the great opening paragraph that grabs you and tells the readers why you should keep reading. It's easy to just scroll through or go on to the next story, but if you've got something that really grabs you, you're going to make the readers stick with it. So that's kind of one of the things that I really focused on in helping some of the new writers.
And thank you for that, because that was very helpful. You walked me through several mistakes that I made and how not to repeat them. Fraser had to do that too. I do tend to make mistakes more than once, the same mistakes. But yeah, it was very helpful, and it was very educational. I do kind of miss the days of when there was that big old learning curve. There's nothing like
learning on the job and learning from experience. And of course, by 2014, I had several years of experience of writing for Universe Today, but it's great to be able to share that experience and share what I've learned too. And so I said that, as I said, that's been a really fun part of being a writer, is just being able to mentor younger writers as well.
So to our listeners, I recommend very much that you check out Nancy's articles there on Universe Today, where she is a regular contributor, and her experience and seniority are pretty evident in the stories that you cover. I would say there's always you're always covering really cool stuff, and and also at the Planetary Society and at the National Space Society's publication Ad Astra, and your most recent. Could you remind me again?
Yes, Supercluster.
Yes. Yeah, and also, if you haven't checked out these books, I strongly advise you to, because they are really wonderful and informative reads. They talk about something which many people will find intimidating or just overwhelming, space science and research, but in an accessible way and also in a personalized way.
Well, thank you, Matt.
So thank you so much for coming in today, Nancy. Hope to have you back. I hope there's some big news for you in the near future. Like, if not another book, then something equally. How about a lecture series? Maybe. But then again, maybe you could launch a podcast here. Right?
Oh my gosh! Well, that's definitely not on my radar. But as I said, you never know what happens.
Exactly. You'll find it there. And so in any case, I hope we can have you back. To all our listeners, thanks for tuning in. I'm Matt Williams, and this has been Stories from Space.
We hope you enjoyed this episode of Stories from Space podcast with Matthew Williams. If you learned something new and this podcast made you think, then share itspmagazine.com with your friends, family, and colleagues. If you represent a company and wish to associate your brand with our conversations, sponsor one or more of our podcast channels. We hope you will come back for more stories and follow us on our journey. You can always find us at the intersection of technology, cybersecurity, and society.